Way back on the PTR, I saw teleport Nova size. I saw shock finesse teleport damage. And I knew what would happen in Season 4. I knew what I would do. And what I would do is create something incredible. Hello, my fellow sorcerers, and welcome to the best sorcerer build I think I might have ever made. Now, look, it's not best in terms of, oh, you can totally push up to 110 pits, who cares, alright? Sitting there killing one boss for 8 minutes, hoping that an echo doesn't one-shot you in 1 split second you happen to drop concentration, is boring. What is fun is absolutely obliterating the entire rest of the game with a 0-second cooldown teleport that you can spam, and every time you do, it one-shots everything around you for millions of damage a teleport. I am so ecstatic that not only this works, it has worked as well as it has. And you know me, guys, I have tried to make teleport stomp, teleport bomb work for seasons now. I've done it with Oculus and Ball Lightning, I've done it with Charged Bolts and the Enchantment, and it's always been fine. But now it's not just fine, it is brilliant, and a build in its own right. You could argue that it's a variant on Arc Lash, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But the arc lashing is the fuse. The teleporting is the explosion. It's taken weeks of fine-tuning, of testing, of practice, of experimentation to get it to this point where it can effortlessly do what you need it to do. I mean, you're seeing it, right? It's only, air quotes, a tier 70. But you can feel how much of a joy it is to just blast around, appearing and detonating every pack of enemies. And look, the boss damage is no slouch. It killed the tier 70 boss with 8 minutes comfortably left on the clock. With perfect gear and 12 out of 12 masterworking, this could genuinely reach as high as tier 90 or so, which is really as high as you ever need to go for pure farming. Everything higher just isn't worth the time investment to material output. Oh, and not to mention, if you are going to push the pit with this, you have a 0-second cooldown teleport. You know how easy that makes it to dodge all of the BS echo attacks? It's so good. Never mind, you know, the rest of the game. You've not experienced a helltide like a teleport helltide. Just blasting around the field, hoovering up cinders, one-shotting every pack you land on. And even if you want to go farm, you know, your regular bosses, I mean, the damage, yeah, detonate your regular andariel. It will kill the torments in about a minute, which, yeah, not as fast as ice spikes, but who cares? Your teleport exploding infinitely with no cooldown. I feel like that's all I need to say for a resounding...
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
I'm just so pleased that this is possible, that it works. Using buffed skills, the new tempering, a new aspect, some new synergies, weaving it back in to the foundation of Sorcerer to create something truly special. I really cannot stress enough that this is the most fun I think I might have ever had playing this class, and I would never use another build outside of hardcore pit pushing. So without further ado, let's do this. Skill tree then, and oh, I just can't wait to share this build. Seriously, this is the kind of thing that I love both Sorcerer and Theory crafting for, just moments like that. Okay. Alright, fill up your Arc Lash then with 5 out of 5, and then take it to Enhanced and Glinting. We want all the cooldown reduction we can get, and of course Arc Lash is still being cast a lot, so we want it to hit as hard as possible. You'll note that we do not need Firebolt, at least not by default, but I will get to that. There are a few versions of this that you can consider depending on what actual gameplay you're doing. Over here then, we just kind of want to move on, so we do that in the best way possible. Potent Warding for some more max resist, and then a kind of useless point in Devastation just to get to those lovely defensives. We want to go full 5 out of 5 Flame Shield so it lasts as long as possible. It's just super useful to have, especially in pits, though it's not required if you're not planning on doing high pits with this build. Then max out your teleport, of course, we want it to do as much damage as it can, and then enhanced, and for once, not the damage reduction. We want mystical teleport. This is like everything. Well, not everything, but a huge part of it. 500% multiplicative damage on your teleport. Yeah, the crackling energy is nice, but the damage is so good, and it turns teleport into a nuke that can hit for millions. We then grab ourselves the free damage that is Glass Cannon. We are super tanky with this build of how often we can apply barriers from all of the teleporting and everything else going on. Then we want to grab Ice Armor, take it to Enhanced, and we're not spending mana, so Shimmering is pointless, so instead Mystical, which is actually really quite nice, as we will be freezing enemies a lot, and 15% multiplicative to them really does ramp up your output. How we'll be freezing them, we'll get to. There is a core aspect to this too. Then we just get the 1 rank in attunement so we can get the resets on these. Over to our conjurations, where we grab Ice Blades, Enhanced and Summoned for the cooldown reduction, and that becomes your enchantment with, of course, you know, teleport, as we need our dodge to be teleport for this to whole function. 3 out of 3 into your Conjuration Mastery. We don't need the mana, but the damage and movement speed is worth getting it for. We'll have quite a few Ice Blades out, and this adds up. Then we get Align the Elements, and 3 out of 3 in Protection for max barrierage, as we need all the barrier we can get for both our damage and not dying. And the thing is, this is one of the reasons this build is actually very flexible on the skill tree, because we don't need things like the usual mana shield. We don't need to get anything more than we have to do here. We don't need to put 2 points into Firebolt. We actually have quite a lot of, I wouldn't say spare skill points, but ones that can fill out nodes that normally get skimped on to make other builds work. In any case, over to Mastery, where we get Inner Flames and thus Devouring Blaze. You might think Devouring Blaze is an interesting choice, considering our only source of actually making it apply is Flame Shield, but again, we will get to that in the versions of this build you can play, and again, there's nowhere else better for the skill points to go anyway, so given that Flame Shield is up a third of the time doing 21% more critical strike multiplicative is still worth the points here. Then we get Icy Veil, so our barriers last as long as they can, and then we want to get Permafrost and 3 lots in Icy Touch, as yes, we will be dealing lots of cold damage, so this is a nice multiplicative upping of that. Then we get ourselves Unstable Currents, of course, we are Arc Lashing at its core, and the attack speed is lovely. Then grab yourself Coursing Currents and Electrocution if you're doing difficult content, or Conduction if you're not, and lastly, we want Esu's Ferocity, because yes, we will be Ancient Flaming for the monstrous attack speed. It's a very important part of this. And if you didn't know, conditional damage reduction doesn't actually work against echo attacks in the pit, because it's not a real entity. So if you take 20% less damage from a close enemy, a ghost of a Blood Bishop that's doing a one-shot line on the floor isn't a real enemy, so you can't be close to it, so you can't reduce the damage. So the best damage reduction you can have in the pit is just flat damage reduction, like the 20% you get on Shaco. Just a little note to go over there that will come up a little bit later, but there is your skill tree. Let's talk gear then before we go over how to play this, as that's a very important section this time around because it's very specific. In any case then, we want to have ourselves a dagger. We don't need lucky hits, so the extra close damage is worthwhile, and we want rapid on it so we can arc lash as fast as humanly possible. It's not just a damage thing, we need maximum attacks per second to power the playstyle. Then we want ourselves Ancient Flame, again for that sweet attack speed. 80% attack speed in just 2 aspects on our arc lash really gets the job done here. It also means we don't need to go out our way to get attack speed affixes, so we can get different ones, so yeah, that is nice. Then we want Edge Masters. We are going to be permanently on full mana, so we might as well be dealing 20% multiplicative more damage. That said, this is the flexible aspect slot. If Storm Swell wasn't broken, we would be using that instead here, but you can essentially use any offensive aspect you feel comfortable with. I've just found that Edge Masters more than gets the job done, and you don't often get to use it. Then we want ourselves Conceited for the extra damage with the barrier. We always have a barrier because we have to have a barrier in this build, otherwise things can go very wrong very quickly, but we'll get to that. Thankfully, it's very easy to permanently have a barrier. Then on your boots, we need to have Hectic, so every 5 of these swipes reduces our cooldowns. This cooldown reduction isn't required, it just makes the build play a lot faster, smoother, and better. Then we need to make a note that you need to have boots that have attacks reduce evade cooldown by 1.5 seconds. I cannot stress that enough. The build will not work unless you have that implicit on your boots. Finally then, defensively, we want Might on our chest, so we get just global 20% damage reduction. As I said, this is what's most important in the bit, because this actually works against Echo Boss attacks, like the 20% on Shaco's does. And obviously, you want a Harlequin, because it's just brilliant, and the best helmet for any build that doesn't need a specific unique helmet for the most part. If you have it, use it. If you don't, you are fine to use just a normal helmet with cooldown reduction, and you don't need the mana per second, of course, so do a different affix. Health is just fine, and then concentration, so we get DR every time we Ice Blades. Again, this is global DR, so it works on everything. You can also get away fine with Godslayers if you're not doing anything difficult. It'll help out your boss damage, and we are going to be freezing and stunning a lot, so it does a lot of work there. Then we have our necklace where we want Frosty Strides. Yes, this little gem. The reason we put it on our necklace is that it raises the below life threshold to 83%, so you only have to play with 17% of your health missing. We'll get to that in the playstyle, but that's really not a big deal at all. We have near 30k health here, and I will be over it when I finally get the goddamn gem chips for 2 more 9% life gems, so you'll actually be playing on about 26,500 health, which is still loads, and all of your defense and health comes from constant barriering anyway, so it's really just kind of free damage every time we evade, and given this build is all about the teleport evade, yeah, it just synergizes beautifully and adds that X factor that really gets the job done, so Frosty Strides on your necklace. Uniques-wise, well, it is just the 2. We use Tibolts, not for the mana, but just for the pure damage. We might as well. There's nothing else better. 20% multiplicative. We're teleporting, obviously, constantly, so that's nice to have. And then always tell Rashes for that 60% multiplicative more damage, and the brilliant affixes that we always like to see. So, gems-wise, you want vulnerable damage on your weapons, you want armor in your jewelry, and then you want health in your armor, unless you aren't res-capped, in which case you want intelligence in your armor until you are. But I am comfortably there here because, you know, ridiculous amounts of intelligence. Affix-wise then, cooldown reduction is your most important, followed by critical strike chance, then critical strike damage, and then vulnerable damage. Past that, it's just your pure intelligence, and general damage increases. Everything else is going to come from tempering. Defensively, affix-wise, you want health. That is always good to have. The more health we have, well, the more health we have while playing with 17% of it missing. And then you need to, and I can't stress this enough, have a armor roll on your boots. You basically have two choices. You either have an armor roll on your boots normally, and a armor roll normally on your chest for 2 armor rolls, and then you will reach your armor cap. Or you have a greater affix armor roll on either your boots or your chest, and you will reach the cap. Finally, you can have a normal armor roll on just one of them, and then you will need to temper for percent armor, but that's the most wasteful way of doing it. Generally, just try and aim for either your boots or your chest to have a greater affix armor, if not, have a single affix armor on both of them. Hopefully that makes sense. Then we need ranks of teleport on your chest. That is the cherry on top. As many ranks to it as we can get. More damage, less cooldown. This is brilliant and genuinely just hard grind this. It makes a big difference. So, that is that, and we end up with quite the nice set of stats. Of course, all our reses are done, our armor is done, we have a good chunk of crit chance without Essus, that is very impressive, lots of critical damage and lots of vulnerable damage. These really are the core 3, and then as much cooldown reduction as you can get, 40%, very, very happy with that. Let's go over then actually playing it. Step 1 then, and I look forward to like the one guy who's going to comment that this build isn't working for them because they've skipped the how to play the build section. But for the other 99.9% of you that appreciate it, I really do appreciate you, and this is what you do. Of course, we need to injure ourselves by 17%, so Frosty Strides actually activates. So I'm just going to walk up to some random mobs, let them beat on me for a little bit until we are there. When you teleport, normally you'll just see, you know, the teleport animation. So we want to make sure that when we teleport, there we go, we see that explosion of frost. That is low enough health, and I can now leave. You're going to have to resist while playing this, not accidentally potioning and putting yourself back above the health threshold. Though against easy content, you can do it on full health with just the damage from teleport. That will be plenty enough. So we are injured, which means, yeah, look, we're still on 21k health. If I had the right gems, it'd be about 23, and honestly, I'm a little bit over-injured, but it's fine. We will be spending most of our time, as I say, barriered up, which is really, really nice. So, now that everything is on, we have our evade teleport, thanks to the teleport enchantment. So what happens when we do that is thus. We blast everyone around us with the damage from the teleport, like so, and then we add the damage from the Frosty Strides, which is this explosion of frost, like so. So if I go over to our dummy, and boom, there we are. It will instantly freeze because of Frosty Strides, which also then makes them vulnerable. This is our vulnerable engine, and it's why we care about vulnerable damage. So, boom, we hit, we freeze, we do a load of damage, and that's all well and good. So the core of the build is to just teleport repeatedly on top of the target as often as you can until it's dead. So how do we speed that up? Well, of course, we specifically got these boots that reduce evade cooldown when we attack, and we've gone heavy into attack speed on a arc lash base. So what you want to do is hold shift. The reason you hold shift is so then when you arc lash, you won't walk forward. You can change your key bindings if you'd rather do it a different way, but if I let go of shift, I will automatically walk to the dummy and then start arc lashing, which we don't want. You want to just attack on the spot like I am doing now. The reason for that is you will do many more arc lashes per second just swiping the air than if your character is constantly trying to run to the enemy before swiping. So we hold shift, we hold arc lash, and then you do this forever. Never let go of arc lash, never let go of shift, so you're arc lashing the air, and then teleport, / teleport, arc, teleport, arc lash, teleport, arc lash, teleport. You see how it goes? Every 2 arc lashes, you will put the cooldown of your teleport evade off cooldown, which is where things start to get very, very fast. So when we actually get onto it like this, you can see that we start to actually explode pretty often. But if I swap it over to a boss, so we actually get Ancient Flame activating, well, you will see it gets even more ridiculous. Look how fast the teleport enchantment, the dodge, comes off cooldown, and we're already starting to reach towards the millions of damage when we explode like this. Past that then, and that really is the core playstyle, you just jump on the pack of enemies, kill them, jump on the next pack of enemies, kill them, jump on the next pack of enemies. You just move through the dungeon like this. You never let go of Arc Lash, you just teleport along and along and along, dodging and killing like that as we go, and you have the time. We essentially just want to press them on cooldown with a few exceptions. Unstable Currents can go on cooldown, that's all well and good. Ice Blades can go on cooldown, that's all well and good. The other two you want to kind of rotate in time. You ideally always want to have either Ice Barrier or Flame Shield on. So you see the little green bar that tells you whether it's on or not above the skill. Once that's about to run out for Ice Armor, you then put Flame Shield on. Once that's about to run out for Flame Shield, you then put Ice Armor on, and so on and so forth. And you see we have more than enough cooldown reduction to pretty much just do it with just Ice Armor, even if we ignored Flame Shield, which is what I would recommend, and then save Flame Shield for a situation where you really need to be immune, like you're stuck in a bad position with an echo attack coming your way. Of course, against easier things, or if you're comfortable, use Flame Shield on cooldown to trigger all your burning synergies, as with this version of your build, Flame Shield is the only time they will be active, and you'll start to see some absolutely monstrous amounts of damage from all of this exploding. Hopefully that makes sense then, and yeah, it's very simple once you start doing it, and I cannot express again just how much fun it is. But I mentioned there are versions of this build, and there are 3 versions. Version 1 is what I am doing right here, and it's what I would push the pit with, because it's the most defensive, because it has the most cooldown reduction, so we can Flame Shield and Ice Armor the most. That version is everything that I have shown you, with Ice Blades and Teleport as your enchantment. Version 2 then is if you are wanting to do easier content and you don't need to worry about min-maxing everything and just want to kill stuff as fast as possible, well then it's very simple. We just take a point out of Flame Shield, put it into Firebolt, and then Firebolt replaces the Ice Blades as your enchantment, and everything else remains the same. We just get more consistent burning synergy. Version 3 is something I have been experimenting with. I have tried extensively with all 3 of these versions, and they all have their pros and cons. Version 3 then is we get ourselves rid of the Firebolt enchantment, we put Ice Blades back in, then we take Ice Blades off our bars, we get rid of this point in Firebolt, we get rid of 2 points in Flame Shield, we then get Hydra, we take it to Enhanced and Summoned, and then we have that on our bars, and we use that as our burning synergy while fighting the boss, which does give us extra stacks of Conjuration Mastery, and we still get Ice Blades from the enchantment, but it relies on you to consistently keep up your Hydra, which means you have to stop Arc Lashing while you do it, so the build plays slower, and you will be a little bit squishier because you will have slightly less Flame Shields and Ice Armors. So you can play whichever one of them you are most comfortable with, and you will do fine, honestly, with all of them. Tempering up next, and it is very important for this build to work. It requires certain tempers, or it's just not going to happen for you. On your first weapon then, offensively, you want Shock Finesse and Teleport damage. You want 1 lot of that, like so, and hitting it with Masterworking is pretty good. You also want 1 lot of Shock Augments, Teleport Nova Size, so your Teleport actually hits everything. Just 1 of each. On the other side of things then, we want to have weapons Elemental Surge, either Poison or Shadow for the 4th stack of Tal Rashes, and then the other one you want to have Offensive, Natural Finesse, and then Close Damage. It's the most valuable, we'll constantly be teleporting onto things' face, so we get a lot out of it, and the Close Damage will enhance our Frosty Strides as well as our teleport, so we get more value out of it than just pure teleport damage. I have cold here because I accidentally bricked it, but thankfully the cold damage still does apply to Frosty Strides, and it helps the Paragon, so I'm not too upset with that. Then we want generally a fence anywhere you can past this to just have the close damage, like I have here on my ring, and I have it here on my gloves. Then when it comes to defensive, you want to get yourself flame shield duration wherever you can. I have it here on my chest. Then we go to utility, where things get very, very, very important defensively, because you want barrier generation everywhere you can get it. So I have it here on my chest, and I also have it here on my boots. Then we talk mobility, which is the most important temper and required for it to function. We want natural motion, evade cooldown. You want to get it on your boots, and ideally you want to masterwork it, and you want it on your necklace, and again, ideally you want to masterwork it. This is what lets the actual teleport enchantment teleport only have about a 3.5 second cooldown, so just 2 basic attacks will take it off cooldown and you can teleport again. It needs it to have a fast enough playstyle to get enough damage out and not just kind of awkwardly sit there waiting for teleport to come off cooldown. Then, lastly, on your resource, we don't care about any of it except for your unstable currents cooldown, which you put on your ring. So, that's all that. Let's do Paragon. Beginning with the beginning board, of course, let's go on this journey. 7 glyphs active, very nice to see always, initially going up left for the resilience and all the extra health we can get. Over to the right for the elementalist, and again, all the extra health we can get. If you don't care about pit pushing, you can spend these points elsewhere, but I do, so they are here. Then we want to go straight up to the glyph slot where reinforced is. This is just general damage reduction, so it works against everything, and we always have to have a barrier in this build. Activate it with the willpower, grab yourself erudite, and then go up through elemental balance into the next board, which is our enchantment master board. Initially we want to arrange it so the glyph is in bottom right like normal, but we want to head up left to this intelligence and then continue up, grabbing elementalist along the way, mainly for the max life, though the non-physical is nice, then continuing on all the way over here past suffused resilience, up through it, and yes, we do get enchantment master. Not only does it mean we get more ice blades easier, which is nice always, faster and up the build, we also get 20% cooldown reduction on our evade teleport. That's what this does for that, which is of course required and huge. Then we go right from this intelligence down here to elemental balance, over to the glyph slot where elementalist finds itself, and then we finish activating it via erudite before leaving in to the next board, which is your burning instinct board. Now we want to go straight across to this intelligence, fly past it, and get some lovely damage reduction from elites. That said, if you are doing easier content, you can get rid of safeguard, and then you can come over here and take this towards the attack speed nodes that are around here, and of course if you're doing easier content you won't have this extra health as you don't need it, so you'll get an extra 3 points, and then we can do that, which is nice to have but certainly not required and not my preference, so I will put everything back where I had it. In any case, once you have done that, you want to head down to the glyph slot, where we will be putting destruction for as much crit damage as we can get hold of. Grab cinders, grab yourself smoldering embers, and then we can move on. Sadly, I don't have the spare points for the final bit of dex, but that's not the end of the world. Heading straight down into our usual frigid fate, arranged so that guarded is top right here, head all the way to this dex, then go left to this int, and then straight down to the glyph slot, where tactician is. We're spamming defensives out, so 10% multiplicative is nice, and it amps up our vulnerable damage, which is especially nice. Heading straight down here in order to get it, and then we can go right to weakness. Moving on through weakness to this dexterity, down and round to frigid fate. Even though it doesn't work properly, it's still better than anything else and worth getting, and then we head up to guarded. Over as we go to the next board, past guarded, it is going to be ceaseless conduit. Chiefly here to activate a glyph. We want it placed so it's in the bottom left, and then head straight towards it, through this intelligence, through this dex, and then down into enchanter for all of that non-physical damage to power up frigid fate the best we can. This can technically be a different glyph if you prefer at this stage, but I still quite like having it. Then we want to go left to galvanic catalyst to activate it, get a bit of extra lightning damage, fill out the rest of the int, and then move on south to the next board, which is going to be your elemental summoner. Arrange it so that Keeper of the Elements is in the top right here, and then we want to go straight down to it, all the way to this intelligence, then to the glyph where we find ourselves exploit, get it activated via conjurer and the extra dex here, then leave via this final dex over into our last board, which is just to activate another glyph, and it is static surge. Arrange it like this, and then straight up all the way, getting all of this dex to activate Flame Feeder for that 10% multiplicative to burning. If you are playing just the Flame Shield as your only source of burning version, this can be a different glyph if you prefer. And technically, again, if you do find yourself 4 spare points, if you don't want to get the defensives here, or you do free up free by not getting extra health here, you can also really well spend them by doing this and getting Keeper of Elements, though it's not super necessary. In any case, though, that is the Paragon, and it will serve you very, very nicely. Other than that, then, simply enjoy. I adore this build. I'm so proud of it. I'm happy with it. I consider it my signature build of the season so far, and I really, really love that it works as well as it does. It is just pure fun and seriously fast. For now then, let me know what you'd like to see after this, but until then, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice, to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.